And then just as we come around here on the left, the house that is called Mary Queen of Scots House. Just on the left-hand side. You'll see that the town is actually built on two levels, those sort of on the top part of the town and the bottom part of the town. They have a football match every year here that is like a cross between Australian rules football and total warfare. And it's played between one side that comes from the top of the town and one side that comes from the bottom of the town. And originally they used to play it with English heads. Today they use a conventional football, or at least that's what they tell us. The other rather violent thing is that Jedburgh is associated with a phrase in Scotland that is a little bit like rough just over the world then of Scotland. They also had a lot more of the root vegetables, the sorts of things that you would use for making warming soups and broths and stews. Turnips, parsnips, onions, later potatoes, based around the town of Dundee. For a long while they brought, the rivers have a lot of salmon commemorated. Take you up towards the High Street.
Edinburgh, Scotland. This is. internationally renowned. You caught me. Internationally renowned world travel. I make sure I won't get you. In Scotland. My new t-shirt. Love this new shirt. On September the 9th, 19... Indeed.
Welcome to Edinburgh Castle. Now I'll be your guide for about the next 20 to 25 minutes. It'll be my job this afternoon to take you on a short guided tour around the outside of the castle. I'll take you up as far as the old citadel, up in what is now known as Crown Square. When I leave you up there, you're then free to wander around the rest of the castle at your leisure. You can go inside and visit all the apartments, and when you do so, you'll find there is a guide in all the rooms. If you want to know any more information than I can tell you in the short time we'll be with you, please do go ahead and ask the guide inside. He'll only be too happy to help you out. If he doesn't know the answer to all your questions, well, he'll think of something. One of the first questions we used last here in Edinburgh Castle is, how old is the castle? Well, it's something we're not exactly sure about. The earliest mention in the history books of any buildings here goes back to the early 7th century. And that's when a man called King Edwin of Northumbria, he came up from the north of England and he built a small fortress high up here on the castle rock. Now, none of these buildings now survive, however, and the oldest surviving building in the castle today is a small chapel, and that was built towards the end of the 11th century. Now, many people also say that this man gave his name to the city. It started out as Edwinsborough, but it has changed over the years to, as we now have it, called Edinburgh. The rock in which the castle is built is volcanic. That last erupted millions of years ago, but it was further reshaped during the last ice age about 10,000 years ago, when large fleets of moving ice came westward and carved out big gullies on either side of the rock. And that left the rock pretty much as it stands today. When you came into the castle this afternoon, you crossed over the Esplanade, and that was constructed in the early 19th century as a parade ground for the soldiers garrisoned here at Edinburgh Castle. Nowadays, of course, they use it for a car park, and also that is the home of the world famous Edinburgh military tattoo. And that takes place out there, and it's usually the first 3 weeks in August of each year. As you probably noticed when you came in there, they're busy erecting the stands just now. And these stands are to put up with me at the present. You're going to have to do something which is not in a lady's nature to do. You're going to have to pass a shot. Somebody beat me to it. But don't worry, if anybody wants to pop one on the way down, you're all more than welcome to do so. Longest siege in the history of Edinburgh Castle. If you look up on the wall on the left-hand side, you'll see a plaque which commemorates that event. In memory of Sir William Kirkcaldy of Grange, who is justly reputed to be one of the finest and most accomplished soldiers of his time, who held the castle for 5 years in the name of Maria Stuart, Mary Queen of Scots. He held it for 5 years, but eventually he suffered death as a devotion to his cause when he was publicly executed down at the Market Cross just down outside St Giles Cathedral. He was taken down there after the siege ended, and he was tried and found guilty of treason. They then hung him. They cut his head off, and his head was placed on a large spiked wooden pole and put up on the ruined walls of the castle. That was a warning to anybody else who dared support Mary Queen of Scots. And after that siege, much of the castle was destroyed and had to be rebuilt. The defences improved. The big Half Moon Battery replaced the King David's Tower. The big walls on the left had to be built, the 4-wall battery, and also the building behind us, which we're about to pass through. If you could ignore the upper story, that's modern. It's the bottom half which is important, because as we pass through there, you'll pass through 4 more of the defensive gates. But just before we do go through, have a look at the symbol above. That's the symbol of Royal Scotland, the gold shield and the red lion, the rampant lion. In Scotland, the lion is always on its hind legs. It's always ready and prepared for action. And it's facing south. It's not that we don't trust our friends from down there, it's just that we're not taking any chances. See on either side of the wall there, that was a big set of heavy wooden doors. Immediately behind that, gate number 4. Another big set of heavy wooden doors, this time with the big metal bolts through them and the spikes on the top. These ones are a little bit more modern, they're only about 150 years old. Now the 5th gateway was the most important one. There you can see the grooves in the wall. That was the portcullis gate. A big metal heavy crisscross gate, this time with spikes on the bottom. could be lifted up into the room above and dropped down very quickly in times of emergency. If you got through that one, well, you're immediately met by gate number 6. And that meant, in fact, that the castle was never ever taken by direct assault. It was only taken after the siege. And that way you had to force the people out through lack of food, water and ammunition. Around the ramparts in Edinburgh Castle, these are all early 19th century, 18-pound muzzle loading. And these particular cannons have never been fired from here at Edinburgh Castle. They were only put there to give you an idea what the castle looked like when it was fortified. But there is one gun that does fire from the castle, and that is the green one over in the far corner, the second one of the two that are there at the moment. And that is the one that's fired from here in Edinburgh Castle every day at 1 o'clock. Every day except for Sundays, Christmas Day and Good Friday. And there has been a cannon fired from here in the castle at that time every day since the year 1861. And that started out as a time signal for the sailing ships in the River Forth. And we're always being asked, why do you have a time signal at 1 o'clock? Traditionally, a time signal should be 12 o'clock. Well, maybe so, but that would require 12 shells. So we just fire at 1 o'clock, save a little bit of money. Now the small building next to the gun is a mid-18th century building. That was built just after the Jacobite uprising in 1746, and it was built as a cart shed. However, it served as a number of uses over the years, but in the last year or so, the authorities who run Edinburgh Castle spent just over £1 million. They've put an extension on the back, and they have completely refurbished the inside and the outside of the building, and that is the new tea room and restaurant in Edinburgh Castle. So if anybody's looking for any refreshments, then you can pop in there if you wish. Early 15th century, and they were built mainly to create a level surface for the buildings at the top of the castle. It was such a large area that they had to be put to use, and that's where they stored all the wine, food, grain. They were used as a barrack, a hospital, a bakehouse, and they were also used as a prison. And that's where the French sailors that were captured during the Napoleonic Wars were held. Now, also on display inside there is a big cannon called Mons Meg. For those who have never heard of Mons Meg, she was forged at Mons in Belgium in the year 1449. Just to give you an idea for size, she's 13 feet long, she weighs 6 tons, and she fired a cannonball of some 300 pounds. And it took 120 pounds of gunpowder to fire a cannonball. If you want to know a little bit more about the history of the cannon itself, one of the vaults in Edinburgh Castle, and it is also the oldest known building in Edinburgh. It was built in the year 1073, before it was later extended, and the archway side added by King David I in 1128. It was a small chapel, and it was built for Queen Margaret of Scotland. Now, she was an English princess who fled from England in 1066 at the time of the Norman Conquest. And she came to Scotland where she met and married King Malcolm III of Scotland. Now she was a very religious and a very charitable woman, and that was a place where she used as a private chapel. She used to come along here every morning when she stayed in the castle and say her prayers in private. And she used that as a private chapel up until her death in the year 1093. Now, as I said, she was very religious and a very charitable woman, and that fact was finally recognised by the Roman Catholic Church about 150 years after she died, and she was canonised in the year 1251. And the small building is now known as St Margaret's Chapel. Now, after she died, it was continued to be used by Scottish royalty up until the Reformation in the mid-16th century, and it then lay idle and unused for some years. But it was finally rediscovered in the 19th century when it was being used as a storage for gunpowder. That's where they used to store all the gunpowder that was used to fire the royal salutes in Edinburgh Castle. However, it's since been restored and dedicated as a chapel, and it's still very much in use today. Serving members of Her Majesty's forces stationed in Scotland, they can apply to be married or to have their children christened or baptised in the small chapel. It's not a bad place for a Scotsman to be married, because you can only invite about 15 guests to the wedding. That's down on the expenses. And when it was first built, there was only one window in the chapel. That's the one on the extreme left as you look towards it. There are 5 altogether. You can see the difference in the stonework in the other ones. Although I may add at this point that the glass is more modern and they only go back to the early 1920s. Now there was the main supply of water. A small round object over there on your left hand side. That's the castle floor well. It goes back to the 14th century. It's 110 feet deep. 90 feet of that was cut through the solid volcanic rock on which the castle is built. That was quite a major engineering feat for something as far back as the 14th century. I forgot to mention, when you go back up to the chapel to see the chapel, if you go to your second set of stairs, look over the wall on the right hand side and you will look over into a small graveyard. And that was used by the garrison to bury their regimental mascots and the soldiers' pet dogs. Look over the wall, you'll see all the little headstones sticking up there. Now there's the top of the Half Moon Battery. We started out just below that. A lot of people come to the castle and tell us they have been to the tattoo or they have seen it on television. Could we please point out where the lone piper plays at the end of each performance? Well, there's a platform built level with the wall there, and he stands up there. But you have to remember, of course, sometimes in Edinburgh we get a slight breeze, and so as not to show off, what you don't see are the wires attached to the weights, which are holding his kilt down. Most of it. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, this is our final stopping place. This is where I leave you. And just before I do go, if you give me 2 or 3 minutes just to explain a little bit about the buildings in this area known as Crown Square. Now, the newest building in Edinburgh Castle, ladies and gentlemen, is the one in front of me. That was built between the years 1923 and 1927. Below some of the outside walls are the remains of an earlier 18th century building. Now, inside that building are listed the names of all the Scots who lost their lives as a result of armed conflict in the year 1914. The building is the Scottish National War Memorial. It's intended as a memorial to all Scots who lost their lives in the First World War, and a memorial to those who lost their lives in the Second World War, in any medal area up to and including the present day. Now, when you go inside, you'll see there is a bay for each of the regiments, 2 books on each bay. The one on the left is the Roll of Honour from the First World War, and the one on the right is the Roll of Honour from the Second World War. And anybody killed up to and including the present day, well, their names are added to the back of the Second World War book. When you go into the inner shrine, you'll see rising through the floor the highest point of the castle rock. That's 443 feet above sea level. Standing on top of that, there is a piece of green Italian marble. That's our stone of remembrance. And sitting on top of that, there is a steel casket. Now inside the casket, there is a scroll. And printed on the scroll are the names of all Scots who lost their lives in the First World War. And there are 150,000 names printed on the scroll. Now, I said it was a Scottish National War Memorial, but it also includes the names of anybody other than Scottish who was killed while serving with a Scottish regiment. Now, if you do go inside, ladies and gentlemen, you're more than welcome to look through all the books which contain the names, but could ask you please to close them when you're finished. And also, as a matter of respect for the dead, I'm sorry, there is no photography inside the Scottish National War Memorial. Now, this takes me to the big building behind here. And that is the Great Hall, the banqueting hall here in Edinburgh Castle. It goes back to the early 16th century. When King James IV came to the throne in 1488, he had the hall extended. No nails, no screws. It's all dovetailed and held together by wooden pegs. Imagine that upside down. You'll see that that resembles the hull of a ship. That's one of the most important timber ceilings in Scotland. Now, also on display in the hall there is a large collection of arms and armour which go back as far as the 1600s. And from there, the small arched doorway over in the far right hand corner there. When you go in there, if you turn sharp right when you go inside, that will take you into the apartments which were occupied by Mary Queen of Scots between March and August 1566. The most important part of the building is away through the back on the right hand side. You come into a very small room. It was in there where Mary Queen of Scots gave birth to her one and only child. He was a son, born on the 19th of June 1566. He became King James VI of Scotland, but more importantly, 1603, Queen Elizabeth I of England died childless. King James of Scotland became King of England as well. He was the first man to rule Scotland and England as a United Kingdom. After all the trouble the English had went to rule Scotland, well, we beat them to it and they went down there and ruled England. Come to south of the border, I'm only joking, please. The last room to visit, ladies and gentlemen, is if you go up the staircase. And you got to see the oldest complete regalia in Europe, the honours of Scotland. The crown goes back to the year 1306, first used at the coronation of King Robert the Bruce. That was the bottom part only, however. It was further refashioned in 1540 by King James V, who added the archways to the top of the crown, and it was last worn in 1651 at the coronation of King Charles II. The sceptre and the sword were gifts from Popes Alexander VI and Julius II to King James IV in the late 15th and early 16th century. And I must also apologise, I'm sorry, there is no photography in the crown room for security reasons. Now, when you're finished up here, ladies and gentlemen, you can go back round and see the chapel, back round to the castle vaults and the prisons, make your way down to the museum. Remember the shop, ladies, and all the toilets are right down the bottom of the castle. If anybody would like me to stay behind for a few minutes, I'd gladly do so. If not...
soldiers' dogs over there. Edinburgh, home of the Scots. Our mist. Now just picture yourself at the 12th, 10th century and right through this gate. Amazingly so. And everywhere you look, Scottish sign is, and right there up there is where it was. This is cool. Pretty cool. It's not Beatles, but it's cool. Right.
Gateway number 3, the metal hinges on either side. Number 4, a very modern wooden doorway, built in the 18th century. Number 5 is up above you, the portcullis.
Photograph man in this city because of that sign there.
Well, this is the man that's got the postcards for cheap.
Yes.
It's about 20 cents a card. 10 pence. See, but my money's only worth half. So, tell me a bit about Scotland, will you, sir?
Yes. What would you like to know about Scotland?
Have you ever seen Paul McCartney around Scotland?
No, I didn't.
You haven't?
No.
Because he's got a farm, you know, out in the Moulton Terrace.
Yes, I believe so.
Isn't that exciting?
Yeah, yes.
You like the Beatles?
Oh, yes, very much so.
You like the Beatles on
My
their own?
daughter gave me two of their tapes for my birthday in January. That's 3 tapes of the Beatles I've got. Sgt. Pepper in the 1961 and the 1964. Cassettes, yes.
So what's it like being a Scot?
Being a Scot, oh, I think it's the most wonderful thing in the world, sir. But you
Pretty
must,
proud of your heritage.
oh, I'm very proud of it indeed, sir. You must remember that an Englishman is only a Scotsman with the brains battered out.
Well, you know, you guys might as well be your own. You might as well be your own country.
Oh, yes. Oh, we're still fighting. We're still at war with the English. Always will be, I think.
I think you should be your own country. You know?
Oh, yes, I think so. When all the states in Eastern Europe have broken away into their own enclave, whatever it happens to be.
I agree. You should have your own money and everything.
Yes, we should indeed, son.
I agree.
After all, we invented almost everything there was. It took a Scotsman to invent television. Perhaps we should be rather ashamed of that with the trash that we get nowadays.
What do you think of the television character Scotty in Star Trek?
Never saw it, sir.
You've never seen
No,
Star Trek?
Never saw it.
Oh, you haven't lived till you see Star
No.
Trek. Well, what else have you got to say?
Not much at all. As I told you, I think Scotland is the most wonderful country in the world. Except that we don't get the weather, you know.
Well, it's second only to the United States of America.
Ah, yes. Yours is a wonderful country, sir. And bicentennial year, I had 8 weeks in Oklahoma.
You did?
A young couple a husband was over here studying at our university for a year. So I sold the papers, the newspaper in those days, and they used to come every day to buy a newspaper. And I suddenly realized they were interested in me as a person. So they started visiting each other, and after he'd done his year, they went back. Once they'd been home a year, they invited me to their home in Oklahoma. I had a wonderful 8 weeks.
Pretty exciting.
I went to the Cowboy Hall of Fame and Heritage Center in Oklahoma City and had the good luck to meet Roy Rogers.
Roy Rogers?
Promoting his first movie for 10 years. So I visited Fort Sill Military Base in Oklahoma City and visited Geronimo's grave. I had a wee game of cowboys and Indians to myself. Of course, you know what's wrong with your country, sir. It's far, far too big. You know?
Big?
Yes, my friends drove me from Oklahoma right down to Arkansas, where their parents lived, right through Texas. Well, I fell asleep 3 times in Texas, and I woke up, I was still in that state.
It is a very big state.
That's very big. Yes.
England's only as big as Alabama.
Yes. Yes, I passed a field of cabbages in Texas into which you could have put the whole of Scotland. That was just one crop. And I liked the little oil wells pumping away there all the time, you know.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful time.
I'm glad you made it.
Yes.
You ever come back, make sure and come to Olympia, Washington.
Yes, I'm hoping
It's
to.
up on the Pacific Northwest on the coast.
My
That's where I
daughter
live.
is keen on visiting America next year, so we're going to Spain in September, so
Go to
I
the
don't
Pacific
know if we'll
coast.
make it next year, yes. I get so many invitations, I could go to America almost
It's
every
just so
month or so.
It's so expensive to fly.
Yeah, it is indeed, sir. And the Scots yet haven't found a way of walking on the water, you know. We will someday.
I can't believe you've been in Scotland and never seen Paul.
No,
Why is that?
I don't know. Just
Hasn't happened yet.
hasn't. No. Perhaps if he comes and buys some postcards, I can claim to have met him that way.
Yeah. Pretty exciting.
Yes.
Got a bagpiper over there. You'll be blocked up there in a minute. Doo-doo-doo. I'm a musician myself.
Have you?
Yeah, I got my own band, and I play guitar and bass, just like Paul. A little bit of keyboards, and I write. I didn't bring a guitar with me, unfortunately. It's something I really miss. You know?
Well, I do a bit of folk singing myself despite my age. There, 82 years I was in March there.
Well, this is one of the finest places in Scotland there is, besides the Mull of Kintyre.
Yes.
The Mull of Kintyre was special to me because of who resides there. But he lives in Sussex more than he does in the Mull right now, anymore. He's got his recording studio all hooked up over there. And, you know. But that's what I came for. Paul's turns 50 on the 18th of this month. And 50 years old, sir.
50 years.
What is your name anyway?
Harry Tranter.
I'm Eric, and it's nice to meet you. And I thank you for your postcards.
That's me just back from a winter vacation. You see, a wee play on words.
Very bad. And English is spoken and understand.
Yes.
Paid £1 to get in. I've been filming the thing. I decided I had better climb up it. Damn it. I don't know how many steps it is, but it's something, isn't it? Oh, look at that concrete. A lot of breath. This is amazing. What an amazing country. There's some of the people from my tour. They're waiting. And there's about 11 of them from India. Oh, birdie. Look at this architecture again. Oh, God, I'm not even up at the top. Skylight. seen so many tour buses? Look at that up there. So here we are in Scotland. It is the 9th of September. Been at it for 4 days. I'm up June 6th, I believe. It was the 9th, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is the 4th day. Boy, it feels like I've been gone longer than that, believe me. What a cultural experience. Look at that. Double decker. That is cool. Those taxis, they look like they're straight out of Elliot's Nest. Can you believe this? If you look at the top of every one of these buildings, architecture like you would not believe.